What's up everyone, welcome back to Miami Miles. My name's Mickey. In today's video, we are back, episode 2 of the tournament series with both of my cars. To my right, my 4.5 liter DeMan GT3 making over 600 horsepower. And to my left, my 2011 997.2 GT3 RS. That car has a full exhaust, the Dundon plenum, Dundon tune, and that car has a 4.5 liter upgrade by DeMan, the M Engineering tune, and a full Dundon exhaust. Now you're probably like, Mickey, this car makes way more power than that. Yes, it does. But the point is, both of these cars with the current configurations, they're right about the same price. So the question is, which one do I like more? Which one gives me the feels, the sensations? And the biggest question of all, is this car coming off consignment and back into the garage? Well, today we're gonna find out. So let's get right into it. Let's start with appearance. Which of these two cars looks better? Now, I think as a whole, in general, the 991.2 GT3 generation looks a little better than the 997. But when it comes to these two particular cars, I think it's a rhetorical question. Which of these two cars gives you a Well, I think that one gives me a rock hard situation in my pants every single day when I see it in my garage. Just look at it. One of the most timeless designs for Porsche in history, with the gray black paint, the red accents. When this car was launched, I remember having it as the background on my phone for many years. And now that I can finally own it, it makes me fall in love every single day. Now, that's not to say that this car is not good looking, because it is. It is tasteful, it is understated. It's black on black with red accents. It looks incredible. You would never know though that this thing's making upwards of 600 horsepower, and I love that about it. But if we're talking about appearance, a slam dunk winner, the car that makes you feel special just looking at it, is that right there. All right. So the interior of the 3RS. Take this key out. Once you get into these buckets, they're actually way more comfortable than the 918 buckets in RS cars are new. I love this car on the inside more than anything because you look in the rearview mirror, you see the red roll cage, the wing in the back. It is such a special place to be. Now, like every modern RS, everything's cladded in suede, steering wheel suede, shifter suede, got leather everywhere. But honestly, this car, being that it's from 2011, it is a little bit dated. Obviously, everything's analog. I love the gauge cluster. Dude, I wish they still did gauge clusters like this. But you go here, you don't have Apple CarPlay, you don't even have a backup camera, nothing. It's just you and the car just transmits that experience into you. And it's hard to convey that through a camera, but let me at least start up the car and show you. Right away, all of the vibrations are permeating into the cabin. That Mezger flat 6, it feels so special even standing still. Let me give you a couple revs. It's funny because the higher the volume gets, the more resonance you get into the cabin, and dude, this thing is just spectacular. I love the interior of the 997. I feel like it was the last modern Porsche with a very nice interior. So let's jump in the 991.2 and see what that interior is like. Oh, wow, that was easy. No struggling to get over bolsters, right into these comfortable sofa seats. Once you're situated, honestly, you can't differentiate this from S-Class. That's how comfortable these seats are. And once you're in the car, the first thing that you notice is how much bigger this car is than the 997. That car is tight. This feels way more airy, way more roomy. It's a little bit easier to see out of without the wing and the roll cage. It's a great place to be. And I love in the Tourings how they had leather on the steering wheel. It's not covered in suede. This car is more luxurious. It's more of a car that you could daily drive than a race car. And I think that's the primary difference between this and that. That and the fact, actually, that this car is 7 years newer than that. And in 7 years, technology comes a long ways. You have a digital cluster here in the dash. You've got a screen that actually has Apple CarPlay, it has a backup camera. The shifter's in an absolutely perfect position. And then you have all of the buttons here to operate the functions of the car instead of that car where they're located at the bottom of the radio. So overall, I think this is a much nicer place to be. You don't feel like you're in a race car. You feel like you're in a car you can cruise in for hundreds of miles. But let's see how this interior translates the feels from the engine. I'm gonna fire her up. That 4.5 liters of vibrator, I feel it coming right up my ass. Couple revs. It's funny because when you rev it, definitely feels higher displacement than that. You can feel the car moving. And yes, this interior is spectacular. Which one do you think sounds better? I think from a standstill, this car right here, it lets you rev all the way out to redline. It sounds ridiculous. The 991.2, on the other hand, only lets me rev to 4,000 RPM and then it cuts me out, which means you can't really get the full breadth of that car's sound. But one thing you notice is just how much deeper, more meaty the sound is than a traditional 4-liter. Both of these cars sound great, but from a standstill, this thing right here takes the win. And that's a good segue. Let's go for a drive in the 997.2 GT3 RS. All right, 997.2 3RS. First word you think of when you get in this car is how damn raw it is. I mean, that was 60. In about 3.5 seconds. This thing is actually a lot quicker than you would think. But yeah, you get in this car and you notice how heavy the clutch is, how mechanical this shifter feels, and how light the flywheel is. And that's something I don't think is spoken enough. These cars have such a light flywheel to master both shifts up and down. It takes probably a week of ownership to really get everything right because it just revs so quickly. Here we go, one of the 2 bends in Miami. Dude, it just... The steering is fantastic in this car. Now, I took off the redline pedals that this car had because I hated the way that they sounded. They vibrated and it sounded cheap, but it's become exponentially harder to heel toe because this flywheel is so light. It's weird. You have to give it so much throttle input, and then when it finally reacts, the tach goes all the way to redline in a millisecond. So yes, it takes so much experience to be able to drive this car properly, but when you get it right, even at 40 miles an hour, the car is a tremendous experience. It is so much fun to drive in a city, go light to light, revving it out. Now, for those of you that don't know, this car has a Dundon plenum, GMG headers and exhaust, and a Dundon tune. And ever since I made that modification, the car absolutely transformed. Honestly, stock these cars feel spiritless. They feel slow. Sure, you get the tactility, you get the sensations, but you don't get the speed. But with these mods, this is ridiculous. It is a ridiculously satisfying experience. And the car feels so small and nimble. You can place it on the road wherever you want. It is so damn satisfying to drive like this. Like, this car brings such a smile to my face. And honestly, it feels a lot smaller than the GT3. Now, that's again because this is a 997, but And this is something that I found out recently. This car is about 3,251 pounds on a scale, and my GT3 is about 3,256 pounds. So that car is almost as light as this. You would never think that, but I guess through the course of a couple generations, a lot of lightweight materials used in that car, the fact that car doesn't have a wing, it makes that weight lighter. So I have no doubt that that car is going to be a lot faster. The question is, will it give me these same sensations? Will I feel as connected to the car as I do to this? So let's head back to Zweck and find out. Oh, what a ride. It's insane how raw this car is, how it transmits all the feels to the driver and how connected you feel driving it, even on that short little run we just did around Zweck. But now it's time, the moment of truth. Let's jump in the GT3. It's been a couple months since it's been here on consignment at Zweck, and honestly, man, I've missed it so much. So let's jump in here and see if it's as damn good as I remember it to be. Drastically different already. These sofa seats are ridiculously comfortable. Oh my God, bro. The clutch. Oh, that's gonna take some getting used to. It's so soft. It's one of the things about the 991.2. It's so damn approachable and comfortable. But for a spot of context, this car has been here, I think, for about 2 months, so I haven't driven it. This is the first time. Oh my goodness, that's gonna take some getting used to that clutch. Yeah, from the get, this car's a lot softer, a lot more comfortable, and about an order of magnitude quieter at these speeds than the 3 RS. No longer do I feel that I'm in a race car. I feel like I am in a very comfortable cruiser. And I've got the sport exhaust turned on even. But from the inside of the car, there's so much more sound deadening in this car than the 3 RS. Right away, bro, the torque. Holy shit. That's different. That is different. From 3 to 5, there has to be 200 torque difference between this and the 997.2 RS. Dude, with this torque, this car is so usable. You pitch it into a little corner, and it feels a lot bigger than the 3 RS. The steering's not quite as communicative. I mean, it still handles, it's still a GT3, but then you get out of the corner and you bury your right foot, and the amount of thrust you get at low RPMs is absolutely ridiculous. I forgot how different this is to the regular 4.0. Jeez, you gotta hold on. Onto the brakes. Those are not as confidence inspiring as those in the GT3 RS. But here, I'm gonna rip it to 9,000 for you. What the holy shit. Bro, this is terrifying. I haven't been in a car with this much torque in a while. This thing hauls ass. And the best thing is, you don't need to use the 9,000 RPMs. Oh my goodness, bro. I'm gonna cry. This might be the best engine ever placed in a car, period. It's more special than a Ferrari V8. It's more special than the 4.0 and all the GT cars from modern Porsche. It's more special than even most V12s. It is just holy shit. I can't go back. I gotta keep driving this thing. I need to have it back. Now, before I get carried away, in my feels, how does this compare to the 3 RS? That car is a little bit more raw. That car is a little more race car-like. All the inputs require more effort. It requires more tactility. It requires you to be smooth, or it punishes you. This thing takes the punishment, and when you take it to 9, it delivers the biggest, happiest sensation you've ever experienced in your life. It's almost euphoric, just like busting a after sex. This is unreal. One more time. Bro, just fuck off. This is the shit. Rick DeMan, I love you, bro, even though you don't love me back. Wow. Wow, there is a place in my garage for both of these cars. Let's head back to Zweck and conclude this video. What an experience. Off camera, I was shocked, overwhelmed by the sensations, the emotions, the euphoria that I just experienced driving this thing. That thing is transformative. It has completely warped my perception on what a car should be, just like what the 765 used to do to me every single day. And the irony is I used to own both this and the 765 at the same time. I just never had them together. I sometimes think that might be the greatest garage I could have ever owned. Nonetheless, let's go to the scorecard, starting with appearance. That car, 9.2 out of 10, just look at it. And that car, an 8 out of 10. Basic look in touring. Most people confuse it for a regular 911. Sound. Even though this car sounds better from a standstill, once you get it up to speed, that thing might be one of the single greatest sounding cars in history. That's a 9.2 out of 10. That's a 9.5 out of 10. Next is performance. To be honest, the 997 is not the fastest car in the world. Even though it gives you all the rawness and sensations and feels, it's just not that fast. So I'm gonna give it an 8.3 out of 10, whereas that right there, that is a lunatic. It feels turbo-S fast with the torque of an LS7 Corvette. That car is a 9.2 out of 10. Next, the manual gearboxes. Which gearbox is better? That gearbox is an 8.7 out of 10 because you have to be so damn precise to get it right and not miss a shift. That gearbox is buttery smooth. It's easy, and it lets you enjoy the car without focusing so much on getting a shift correct. So that's a 9.2 out of 10. Next is rawness. I've switched it from handling and braking to rawness. I think rawness is more of an important category for me. Now, in terms of rawness, that car is ridiculously raw. You get all the vibrations and sensations and little rocks hitting the bottom of the car. It is special. I think that car is a 9 out of 10 when it comes to rawness, whereas the 991.2, it's more isolated, it's more luxurious and more modern. That makes that car an 8 out of 10. Next is the interior. How does the interior stack up? Well, even though that is one of the final classic Porsches that has an epic interior and it makes you feel so special to be in, it doesn't have any creature comforts. And honestly, it's super hyper focused on driving, which is why I gave that car a 7 out of 10 and that car an 8 out of 10. Because even though it doesn't feel as special, it's more comfortable. It's got Apple CarPlay, it's got a backup camera, the things that you need to navigate your daily driving life. Next, we have date night. Which of these cars are you gonna pull up to pick your date up in? Well, if you pull up to pick your date up in that, you're gonna be deaf by the time you get to the restaurant, and it's gonna shake you half to death. Whereas that thing is extremely comfortable. So I'm gonna give that car right there a 6 out of 10, and the 991.2 an 8 out of 10. Next is value for money. This car right here in current market conditions is $315,000 to $330,000 with those miles, which is insane. You know what you could buy for that money? You could get a bevy of supercars, turboed cars, cars with 1,000 horsepower, which is why I've only given it a 7 out of 10. But that car right there, for the money, 200 grand, 60 G's to Uncle Rick DeMan, and you get for $260,000 the single greatest experience I have ever felt. That's a 9 out of 10. Next is long-term investment. Which of these two is the better hold? I think that's a rhetorical question. This is so iconic to the Porsche brand, which makes that car a 10 out of 10 long-term. And the GT3 Touring, I think, is around a 7 out of 10. That'll be appreciated a lot further down the line. Last but not least, excitement. Which of these cars sets your hair on fire? Well, I can't lie, guys. That thing does. That is one of the single greatest experiences, and I would rank it just below my 765 LT Spider. That's a 9.7 out of 10, and this right here is a 9 out of 10. Now let's throw up the totals. The GT3 RS, 83.4 out of 100, and the GT3, 85.6. Ladies and gentlemen, my favorite car that I own and that I've driven in this tournament series, the DeMan 4.5 liter GT3, still on consignment here at Zweck, but I'm gonna wait a couple weeks after this video is posted. If one of you ends up buying it, God bless you. If you don't, I'm gonna take it home, man, because that is the greatest car I own, and I feel bad sitting here knowing that I can't take it home with me today. Anyways, guys, if you enjoyed that video, go down below, give me a like, give me a subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you next video. Take care. Peace.